The bodyguard says that the image of her awake, even if somewhat disoriented, is both heartbreaking and comforting. It's comforting because she was not instantly gone. Heartbreaking because it highlights that help arrived, but still couldn't save her. He also indicates that Diana actually had a faint pulse while being transferred to the ambulance. That small sign of life gave paramedics hope that they could pull her through once they got to the hospital. He mentions how the fireman, or Gallon, was stunned when he learned the victim he tried to save was Princess Diana. He had no clue who she was in the immediate moment. He was just doing his job, attempting to save a blonde crash victim with minimal visible injuries. The bodyguard insists this detail underlines why so many claims about a conspiracy to have her killed don't ring true. Nothing about the crash scene looked staged. It was chaos and confusion, and no one had a clue they were dealing with royalty. Just people in dire need of help. In the ambulance, Diana slipped in and out of consciousness. She reportedly went into cardiac arrest, prompting frantic attempts at CPR. The bodyguard has heard from those who were there that for a few short seconds, it seemed like the medical team got her heart beating again. That glimmer of hope didn't last. The internal injuries that no one could immediately see would prove fatal. She passed away at the hospital hours later while surgeons tried to fix the rupture near her heart. To this day, people argue about whether things could have been different if Diana had been rushed to the hospital faster, or if the ambulance had used a different route. The bodyguard is honest in his stance. We'll never know. He's heard the paramedics argue that the French approach to emergency care is different from the British style, that on-scene stabilization took priority over immediate transport. Regardless, it's clear Diana was far more severely hurt than her outward appearance suggested. In the end, her final words were likely the bewildered murmur of someone who realized something horrible had happened but wasn't totally aware of how life-threatening it was. The paparazzi dilemma. The final puzzle piece is the paparazzi. For a while, the entire world blamed them, and many still do. Some say that if it weren't for the relentless chase, the driver wouldn't have sped, and Diana wouldn't have died in that tunnel. Others argue that while the paparazzi's behavior was bad, the bigger problem was the presence of an intoxicated driver behind the wheel. The bodyguard offers a more nuanced view. In his mind, the paparazzi were definitely contributing to the tension and panic, but the entire security apparatus around Diana had collapsed under the weight of her newfound independence. He insists that the paparazzi's aggression was no new phenomenon. Diana had faced them from the moment reporters learned of her relationship with Prince Charles all those years ago. She was used to stepping off a curb while a cluster of cameras blocked her path. She had even cooperated with some journalists in the past, trying to harness the media's power to promote her charitable causes. But her romance with Dodi brought a new level of frenzy. Tabloids couldn't get enough of the millionaire's playboy son and the world's most famous ex-royal. Everyone wanted that exclusive shot, maybe a kiss, a whisper, a moment of tension. The financial rewards for such photos were enormous, spurring the paparazzi to drive recklessly through Paris in pursuit. Yet the bodyguard says it's too simplistic to say the paparazzi alone caused the crash. He points out that Dodi was also determined to slip away undetected, rushing out into the night against any better judgment. The security detail was so scattered that they ended up relying on a deputy head of Ritz security with an unconfirmed blood alcohol level. The bodyguard calls it a perfect storm. Sure, the paparazzi's pushy presence was the flashpoint, but every step up to that point was flawed. He believes that if any single safeguard had been in place, say, if a professional chauffeur with a sober background had been driving, Diana might have arrived safely at Dodi's apartment. The paparazzi were intrusive and callous, but they weren't the sole reason the car crashed at high speed. He also remembers hearing about how some paparazzi, after the accident, rushed forward with cameras instead of offering help. That, he says, is a moment that reveals how twisted the tabloid culture was. Emergency personnel had to push them back. Meanwhile, the bodyguard was fielding frantic calls from staff wanting updates on Diana's condition. Some paparazzi claimed they were just doing their jobs, while others insisted they had tried to help once they realized how severe the crash was. Regardless, the damage was done. In the months and years after Diana's death, there was a global outcry over paparazzi tactics. People demanded new laws, new protections. Yet, the bodyguard feels that the world has a short memory. Over time, sensational pictures still fetch high prices, and paparazzi culture hasn't disappeared. In his view, Diana's death could have led to a real overhaul, ensuring celebrities or public figures were better shielded from reckless pursuit. Instead, the conversation fizzled out, overshadowed by conspiracy theories, official investigations, and changing headlines. He calls the entire night a giant security failure, because so many systems that should have protected Diana left her exposed. She was no longer a royal highness with tight palace protocols, and she hadn't yet established her own bulletproof network of experienced security. Dodi's wealth and connections, ironically, did not translate into the safest possible environment. The paparazzi just turned up the pressure, turning a risky strategy into a lethal one. Confrontations with the royal establishment and legal hurdles. When the shocking car crash in Paris claimed Princess Diana's life, millions worldwide turned to the royal family for comfort and answers. Many people felt the monarchy should have offered a warmer, more transparent response to the tragedy. Suddenly, a quiet tension seeped out into the open. Private frustrations boiled over, and individuals searched for someone to blame. In the middle of this storm stood the princess's on and off security circle, a small group of men charged with keeping her safe, yet powerless on that fateful night. Eventually, one of these men chose to speak out. For years, the bodyguard had been more than just a silent figure in Diana's orbit. He knew the lines of succession, the restrictions of palace protocol, and the consequences of stepping out of place. But in the aftermath of the accident, the royal establishment tried to close ranks. That's when he realized there might be more at stake than simply defending the public image of the monarchy. Documents needed signing, hush-hush agreements were laid on the table, and he braced for confrontation. Some key palace aides wanted a smooth, simple narrative. Yes, it was all a terrible accident. Blame the driver. Condolences to the family. Let us move on. But the bodyguard felt something else brewing. Countless awkward questions nobody wanted to address. Had the princess been left with subpar protection once her divorce was finalized? Why did everything feel so uncoordinated that night in Paris? Why were certain eyewitness accounts brushed aside? The tension with the monarchy did not take the form of a flashy showdown in the corridors of Buckingham Palace, but rather subtle forms of pressure. Insiders murmured about whether the bodyguard should sign non-disclosure papers. Close associates hinted that legal trouble might arise if he ever contradicted official statements. To him, it was all too obvious that some corners of the royal establishment saw him as a loose end, someone who had no official place in the firm once Diana was gone. Others within the palace were more empathetic. They quietly admitted there was a deep sadness in how Diana's final hours played out, and they feared the scandal could spin out of control if too many conflicting stories emerged. The bodyguard saw it from both angles. The monarchy had lost one of its brightest stars, and the entire institution was staggering under public grief and growing media hostility. He also became wrapped up in the complicated swirl of legal proceedings. French authorities launched an investigation into the crash. British officials monitored from across the channel, keen to see how the blame game would unfold. Paparazzi who had chased Diana's car were briefly detained, then released. Some tabloids even tested the waters of sensational conspiracy theories, claiming that Diana had been targeted by shady forces. The bodyguard recalls feeling torn between his loyalty to the memory of the princess and the rules that came with any brush against royal life. Stepping forward could place him on a collision course with powerful individuals who had no interest in seeing the official reports questioned. He wasn't alone. Other staff members, including the late Diana's aides and butlers, also faced tough choices about talking to the media or cooperating with various legal teams. A few who had once been close to the princess gave interviews that stoked further allegations of a cover-up or hints of neglected safety protocols. The bodyguard, though, wanted to keep his head above water, mindful of not just the monarchy's lawyers, but also Dodi Fayed's father, Mohammed Al-Fayed, a man determined to prove a larger plot was at work. The tug-of-war between different factions left him exhausted. Why he's breaking his silence now? After the crash, the bodyguard didn't immediately rush to the press. He was haunted by guilt and plagued by nightmares about that chaotic night in the Pont de l'Alma underpass. He knew his story could easily be twisted or overshadowed by the frenzy of tabloid headlines clamoring for shocking details. For years, he remained in the background, trying to find normalcy in a world that could not stop talking about Princess Diana's death. When he looked in the mirror, he saw the face of someone who felt he had let down the one person he was supposed to protect. No matter how many times people pointed out that he wasn't the driver, and that Diana had made her own choices that night, he still shouldered the regret. He also carried around his memories of Diana. How she sipped tea with staff in the early evening, how she quietly supported her sons, and how she faced cameras with an almost unearthly calm. But he was aware of her private pain as well. Opinions about Diana had become polarized. Some cast her as a saintly figure. Others claimed she was manipulative. He knew her best as a kind, flawed individual under too much pressure. He found it increasingly painful to watch her legacy boil down to conspiracy theories, paparazzi standoffs, and old footage of that final summer with Dodi Fayed. Every few years, major anniversaries of Diana's passing triggered a wave of press coverage. The bodyguard would get calls from old colleagues or journalists, each seeking exclusive anecdotes. He consistently refused, telling himself it was better to let the official narrative stand. But time can change perspective. As he saw documentaries and articles sensationalize the same old angles, he began to suspect that people might benefit from a fresh viewpoint. Someone who had lived in her shadow. Someone who had no interest in fanning conspiracy flames, but also no desire to whitewash the chaos of that final night. Why speak out now? He says it was a slow process, not a single event. He began talking confidentially to a therapist, struggling with the trauma of seeing the princess lying in the wrecked car, her eyes sometimes fluttering as first responders tried to keep her alive. He confesses to nights spent awake, replaying the same images, headlights cutting through smoky air, paparazzi yelling. The terrifying moment he realized it was Diana in mortal peril. As the nightmares persisted, he felt a need for catharsis, not just for himself, but for the public that still aches when they remember those headlines. So he decided enough was enough. He was done hiding behind the hush-hush environment that typically surrounds royal staff.
King Charles III has been diagnosed with cancer. Buckingham Palace just confirming the news in a statement, but not saying which type of cancer.
Something serious is happening behind the palace doors. Queen Camilla has shared news that no one saw coming. She has been diagnosed with a dangerous illness. For years, she has been by King Charles's side, always strong, always smiling. But now she faces a health battle that could change everything. People close to the royal family are worried. Whispers are spreading. What does this mean for her? What does this mean for the royal family? Questions are everywhere, but answers are few. Now, the truth is coming out, and it's more shocking than anyone expected. Queen Camilla's deadly diagnosis. Now, let's talk about the heartbreaking reason Queen Camilla is making headlines all around the world. This news has shocked not only the UK, but also millions of royal fans across the globe. No one expected this, and honestly, it's hard to even believe. Queen Camilla has shared that she has been diagnosed with multiple myeloma, a rare and deadly type of blood cancer. It's the kind of disease most people don't know much about until someone close to them is affected. Sadly, that someone, in this case, is Queen Camilla herself. It is believed that Camilla first started feeling unwell a few months ago. She had been experiencing constant back pain, unusual tiredness, and even weight loss. At first, she thought maybe it was just stress or age catching up. After all, being part of the royal family comes with a lot of pressure, and she's been attending countless royal events. But things didn't get better. In fact, they got worse. She found it hard to stand for long hours during events. Even smiling and waving seemed tiring. That's when the doctors ran some tests. After weeks of checkups and endless hospital visits, the royal doctors finally gave her the heartbreaking news. She had multiple myeloma. Camilla chose to share this news with the world in the most graceful way. Instead of hiding it, she sat down for an emotional interview with a royal reporter. With a trembling voice, but with her usual calmness, she shared her diagnosis. She wanted people to hear it from her, not from rumors. She also released an official statement through Buckingham Palace, where she thanked everyone for their love and support. Camilla admitted in the interview that hearing the words, "You have cancer," changed her world forever. She said she felt like the ground had been pulled from under her feet. But she also shared that she is determined to fight this battle with all her strength. Understanding multiple myeloma, the silent killer. Many people might not know what multiple myeloma is. It is a type of blood cancer that affects the plasma cells found in our bone marrow. These cells are supposed to help us fight infections. But when they turn cancerous, they start damaging the body from the inside. The symptoms can be really hard to notice at first. They include tiredness, back pain, frequent infections, and weak bones. Most people, just like Camilla, think it's normal aging or stress. But sadly, this disease keeps growing silently inside the body until it's too late. Multiple myeloma is very dangerous because it doesn't just attack one part of the body. It spreads and affects the bones, kidneys, and even the immune system. That's why doctors call it a deadly disease. The survival rates depend on how early the cancer is caught. Some people live for several years with treatment, while others may have a much shorter time. Sadly, there is no permanent cure for multiple myeloma yet. The treatments available, like chemotherapy, radiation, and stem cell transplants, only help to slow it down. Doctors say that this cancer is more common in people above the age of 65, which makes Camilla's case even more worrying. Many women her age don't even realize they have it until it becomes very serious. Experts from across the world have already started reacting to Camilla's diagnosis, calling it a brave step for her to share this news publicly. They hope it will raise awareness about this deadly disease and help others catch it early. The impact on Queen Camilla's royal duties. Now, as you can imagine, this diagnosis has not just affected Camilla's health, but also her role as the queen consort. Being a senior royal is not easy. There are hundreds of public appearances, charity events, and royal tours every year. It's a full-time job that demands both physical and emotional strength. Sources close to the palace have said that Camilla is already stepping back from many of her royal duties. She has canceled several public appearances, and palace insiders say this is just the beginning. Doctors have advised her to rest and focus on her treatment, which will involve chemotherapy and other aggressive treatments. King Charles is said to be absolutely heartbroken by the news. He has been by Camilla's side every step of the way. In fact, royal insiders say that the king is even considering cutting back on his own royal duties so he can spend more time with Camilla during this tough time. What's even more worrying is that this comes at a time when King Charles himself is battling his own health issues. As many of you already know, Charles was recently diagnosed with cancer too, though the palace hasn't shared what kind. This means that both the king and queen are now fighting serious health battles at the same time. Prince William and Kate Middleton are also said to be deeply worried. With both Charles and Camilla unwell, a lot of the royal responsibilities may now fall on William and Kate's shoulders. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, though estranged from the royal family, have reportedly reached out privately to express their concern and support. There is growing speculation about what this means for the future of the monarchy. Will Charles and Camilla step back fully? Will Prince William need to step up sooner than expected? These are questions many people are asking right now. Camilla's personal message, a woman of strength and grace. In the middle of all this, Queen Camilla has shown incredible courage. In her interview, she spoke openly about her feelings and her plans for the future. She thanked everyone who had sent her letters, prayers, and good wishes. She also shared a very emotional message that touched many hearts. She said, "I have always believed in facing life's challenges with courage and grace. This is not an easy journey, but I know I am not alone. I have the love of my family, my husband, and the people of this country. For that, I am truly grateful." Camilla also made it clear that while she is going through treatment, she wants to spend more time with her children and grandchildren. She wants to focus on what truly matters: family, love, and making every moment count. At the same time, she said she will continue supporting the causes she deeply cares about, like women's health, domestic violence charities, and reading programs. But of course, everything will now depend on how she feels and what her doctors advise. She ended her message with a small but powerful request. She asked people to get regular checkups and never ignore the signs their bodies give them. She hopes her story will encourage others to take their health seriously. What this means for the future of the monarchy. Camilla's diagnosis has left many people wondering what the future holds for the British monarchy. With both the king and queen battling cancer, this is truly an uncertain time for the royal family. For centuries, the royal family has symbolized strength and stability. But now, the future feels shaky. There are talks in royal circles about the possibility of a regency, where Prince William might have to step in to perform the duties of the king if Charles becomes too unwell. This is not something that would happen overnight, but the fact that people are even talking about it shows just how serious the situation is. Some experts say that the royal family might never be the same after this. At the same time, many people feel a new sense of connection to the royal family. They see Camilla and Charles not just as royals, but as human beings, parents, grandparents, husband, and wife, facing the same fears and struggles as any other family. Public sentiment right now is mixed. Some people are sending endless love and prayers to Camilla. Others are quietly questioning what this means for the monarchy's future. Will people continue to support the royal family if their two most senior members are no longer able to lead? One thing is clear. The coming months will be crucial. The royal family will need to make some very difficult decisions. But for now, the most important thing is Camilla's health and well-being. Queen Camilla's diagnosis has left many in shock, and the future remains uncertain. As the royal family faces this difficult time, all eyes are on what happens next.
It was an oh my god moment. So I think they'll come and go. But you have to let them come and let them go.
For a long time, Duchess Sophie has stayed quiet, always keeping her feelings hidden. But now, that has changed. She has finally spoken, and her words are shocking. I despise her. These three simple words have shaken the royal world. People have always believed that everything was peaceful behind palace doors, but this proves otherwise. What made Sophie say something so strong? Who is she talking about? And why now, after all this time? This story is bigger than anyone expected, and the truth is finally coming out. Sophie's alleged comments. I despise her. There have been rumors that Sophie has made private comments about Camilla. Some insiders claim that Sophie has resentment towards her. Some say that she has never forgiven her for her role in Diana's pain. Has Sophie ever openly said, I despise her? There is no public record of it. But behind closed doors, things could be different. The royal family is known for keeping secrets, for hiding their true feelings. If Sophie does have negative feelings about Camilla, she would never say it where the public could hear. So why would she stay silent for so long? Maybe because she has no choice. The royal family is built on loyalty and discretion. Speaking out against Camilla would cause problems, not just for Sophie, but for everyone around her. But deep down, does she still hold a grudge over Diana's fate? We may never know for sure. What we do know is that Sophie has always been seen as one of the more genuine royals. If she does have feelings about Camilla, they are likely real. Sophie and Princess Diana. The world knew Princess Diana as the People's Princess. She was loved, adored, and admired for her kindness, her charity work, and her ability to connect with people. Sophie, on the other hand, came into the royal family much later, but in many ways, she was compared to Diana. Sophie and Diana never had a public feud. They were never seen fighting, arguing, or even saying anything negative about each other. But behind the scenes, there was tension. It wasn't personal, but more about their places in the royal family. Diana was larger than life. Everything she did was front-page news. Sophie, when she married Prince Edward in 1999, was stepping into a royal world still haunted by Diana's legacy. Diana's death in 1997 shook the entire world. It was one of the darkest moments in royal history. People were devastated. The grief was overwhelming, and the anger toward the royal family was undeniable. Many blamed the royals for how Diana was treated when she was alive. Some even believed they had something to do with her tragic accident. At that time, Sophie wasn't officially part of the royal family yet, but she was already in a relationship with Prince Edward. She witnessed the public outrage, the sea of flowers outside Buckingham Palace, and the emotional funeral watched by millions. Sophie saw how much Diana meant to the people, and maybe she realized that anyone who came into the royal family after Diana would always be compared to her. After Diana was gone, there was a strange shift in the royal family. The monarchy had lost its biggest star, and people were looking for someone to fill that gap. Some thought Sophie could be that person. She was elegant, kind, and had a natural warmth. She also had a striking resemblance to Diana, especially with her blonde hair and soft features. The media even called her Diana 2.0 at one point. But Sophie never tried to be the next Diana. She did things her own way. She focused on her work, supporting charities and staying out of scandals. But one thing is clear: Diana's legacy influenced Sophie. She followed in Diana's footsteps in many ways. She worked with charities related to blindness, children's welfare, and healthcare. She took on a role that felt meaningful, not just royal duties for the sake of tradition. The real question is, did Sophie ever blame Camilla for what happened to Diana? It's no secret that Camilla was the woman in the middle of Charles and Diana's marriage. Camilla was always there, even when Diana was still Charles's wife. The world saw Camilla as the villain, the woman who destroyed Diana's fairy tale. But what about Sophie? Sophie never publicly criticized Camilla. She never said anything against her, at least not in public. But that doesn't mean she didn't have opinions. Deep down, did she feel like Camilla got away with too much? Did she feel bad for Diana? These are questions only Sophie herself can answer, but if she did have any negative feelings, she kept them private. Queen Camilla's rise and Sophie's true feelings. There was a time when Camilla was one of the most hated women in Britain. People didn't want her anywhere near the royal family. She was the reason Diana suffered. She was the reason Diana's marriage fell apart. So when she finally married Charles in 2005, many people weren't happy. Sophie must have had her own thoughts about this. Unlike Camilla, Sophie had a clean reputation. She was never part of any affair. She was loved by Queen Elizabeth. She worked hard and did her duties quietly. She was seen as trustworthy. Queen Elizabeth had always been close to Sophie. She trusted her, invited her over for tea, and saw her as a hard-working member of the family. Camilla, on the other hand, had to earn her place. The Queen didn't always approve of her. In fact, for a long time, she refused to even acknowledge her relationship with Charles. So, was there tension between Sophie and Camilla? Many royal insiders believe there was. Sophie had a higher rank in the family before Camilla became queen. She was more trusted, more respected, and had a stronger public image. But as soon as Camilla was officially given the title of queen, everything changed. Suddenly, Camilla was at the top. Suddenly, she was the one with all the power. Did Sophie despise Camilla for this? Did she secretly feel like Camilla didn't deserve it? Again, we can only guess. But it's hard to ignore the possibility. For years, Sophie was seen as a rising star in the royal family. And then, overnight, she was overshadowed by the one woman who was once hated by the entire country. Has Sophie ever hinted at her true feelings? She has always been professional in public. She smiles, she does her job, and she never stirs up drama. But body language experts have pointed out moments where she seems distant from Camilla. There are times when she looks uncomfortable around her, times when she doesn't seem as warm as she does with other royals. Could that be a sign of hidden resentment? The shift in power, Sophie versus Camilla. Everything changed when Queen Elizabeth passed away. It was the end of an era, and a new order began. King Charles took the throne, and with him, Camilla became queen. This meant that Camilla now had more influence, more responsibilities, and more power. For Sophie, this must have been a tough transition. For years, she had been a trusted royal, someone the Queen relied on. But now, with Charles and Camilla in charge, things were different. There were reports that Sophie was being pushed aside, that she wasn't as important as she used to be. Did this make her jealous? Did this make her angry? If she had any negative feelings, she never showed them. But it must have been frustrating. She had worked so hard, only to be overshadowed by a woman who had once been the royal family's biggest scandal. Sophie's new role under King Charles is still unfolding. She is still active, still doing her duties, but she is no longer in the spotlight like before. Some say she is content, while others believe she feels sidelined. The question remains, will Sophie ever break her silence? Or will she continue to play the role of the loyal Duchess, even as history keeps repeating itself? The truth is out, and it's more shocking than anyone imagined. Duchess Sophie's words have changed everything. But is this just the beginning? Will more secrets come to light? One thing is certain, this story is far from over. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. This is a story no one saw coming. Stay tuned, because there's always more to uncover.